Welcome to Flights, the podcast where we uncork the secrets to running a successful destination wedding and group travel business. Each episode, we will explore the good, bad, and ugly of destination weddings while sipping on the finest wines from our pantries.
As your hosts, we believe in savoring the journey with a glass of wine in hand. Join us, Mario Lopez and Ashley Morris of Destination Wedding University, as we explore all of the adventures and misadventures that we experience in this crazy industry.
Hello, everybody. We are back with episode 5 of season 1 of Flights. I'm saying season 1 because we know this is going to go on as long as Mario will have me. And today we have a pre-Thanksgiving episode for all of you to enjoy during your holiday travels. And I think it's going to be great.
I'm super excited. Today, we'd like to welcome Lynne Chomicz from Classic Vacations. Welcome, Lynne.
Thank you. No, thank you both for having me. And I'm excited to kind of connect and share with you guys because you guys have a great audience and a great, influence. So I'm excited to be part of that.
For those of you that don't know, Classic Vacations is one of the powerhouse tour operators in the industry. They are phenomenal to work with. And so we wanted Lynne to come in and just kind of give us an overview of who Classic is and what her, kind of day-to-day looks like and why we should be using tour operators. And it will kind of hit on a couple different points as we go. So if you guys are ready, I think we'll dive into it.
Yeah, let's go.
And just in case anyone is concerned, is this just another webinar for Classic? It's not. Lynne is going to be answering the same questions that everybody answers. We're going to talk about her story and how she got here. I think this episode is great for anyone who wants to just learn more about how tour operators work and where they sit within the industry. But rest assured, it's not, I'm sorry, Lynne, but it's not going to be just
Let me put my PowerPoint away. Hold on.
Yeah.
So whether you use Classic or not, we think this is a great episode to listen to.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's start there then, Lynne. Tell us a little bit about your story. How did you end up, with Classic and travel?
Well, it was actually after college. I did not go to school for travel, but I actually was a intern for a human resources, which was my major, was business and human resources. And I worked at a temp agency and I was filling jobs, doing interviews and testing people for, typing speed. So that shows how old I am. So, because now everyone texts and uses their thumbs, but so I was doing that. And then the owner of the staffing agency asked me if I would go on a job for her. And that job was a travel agency and to be their office manager. So I was an hourly employee, walked into this travel agency and basically just was like organizing brochures. And then I was, kind of as they saw that I actually had a degree and could function with, spreadsheets and documents and things like that. So then I started getting into the incentive side of the travel agency. So I would go to presentation meetings and we would pitch different groups and destinations and I would build budgets. And so from day one, I was already kind of into the luxury group travel world, not even knowing that was a thing. And, after a few months of being there, I was working on registration lists and things like that. And they said, we might need you to go to Hawaii. I'm like, yes. And they said, well, do you want to know when it is? I'm like, no, I'll be there. Just let me know. I'm not doing anything. So they essentially brought me on my first site. And so I was on site. And even though it was in the ballroom, most of the time I would get up extra early to go sit by the ocean, have my Kona coffee. And all I could say is I'm getting paid to do this. Like it was just like a dream job. I could drop anything and get on a plane in 20 minutes if I needed to. And it was just really fun. And I really got addicted to it very quickly, but I also got burned out. So I'm always like every 2 to 3 years, like I need a new challenge. I need a new, day-to-day kind of thing. So I went from doing incentive travel to actually working on the convention services side. So I left Minneapolis, moved to Arizona, was there for a while and then realized that wasn't close enough to the ocean. So I moved to Maui. So I moved to Hawaii. And I did convention services. So I was doing inbound groups and writing BEOs and, hosting, planning weddings. And I did that. And then they kind of said, would you like to do sales? And my first instinct was like, no, I'm not a salesperson. I'm an organizer. I'm a planner. And they're like, well, you work less and you get paid more. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty darn good.
Love to do
So
that.
I'm like, yes, I'm a salesperson now. So I moved into sales, but I've got a very, intense and detailed operational background. So again, I usually probably get too much into the trenches with everybody, but that's what I know. And that's where I started. But then I really do like the sales side of it and having the dream, but I'm very practical. Like, we can't sell that. We can't offer that because I know it's not going to come through. So I feel like it does help me as a salesperson to make sure that I know what the reality could be, but I'm also very practical and reasonable that I'm not going to sell you something that's not going to work. And so for me, like, I was in Maui for 5 years, and then I moved back to the mainland and chose Chicago. So my husband's from Chicago, I'm from Minnesota, and we basically settled here, and I got hired back by Starwood at the time. So I was basically a regional representative for Starwood, Hawaii. And then I did that for about 7 years, handling half the country for 12 hotels. It was great, but then I was traveling every other week. I was on a first name basis with my taxi driver. And it's funny, he was asking me like, how was your last trip? And I was having more conversations with him than my husband. And I'm like, that's a trickling point that I think that's a note that I need to change. And that's when Classic Vacations had a job opening, which at the time there wasn't really. People went to Classic and they stayed. There weren't a lot of job openings, especially in the field, because it's a California-based company. So I applied, got the job as the business development manager in the Midwest. And at the time, I think it was 7 states. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going from 20 something states down to 7. And this is perfect because then, I can really focus and stay close to home, but I can still travel. And same thing too. I got to go to Europe for work. I was going to Mexico. So even though I was going to Hawaii still once a year, it was good to kind of have some diversity. And then just my history at Classic was, every 2 to 3 years, I'm looking for a new challenge. So I moved from BDM into like a regional role with new business development, which was kind of the 80-20 rule. Mm-hmm. At one point, Classic realized that our BDMs are spending 80% of their time on their top 20% of the accounts. So we took all the accounts that were kind of lower sales or no sales and moved them into new business development. So you could become a big fish in a small pond versus the opposite. So I started focusing on that. And then over time, just started, became the director for that team. And then just been building it out. And then I just recently moved over to groups. So there's it's just wherever I find something interesting, been navigating kind of my way through that. But then again, too, my, OCD kind of starts going that it's like too much. So like, let's pivot and try something new. And so there's, again, with the travel industry, there's always something new, which, I think there's other things I haven't learned. So I'm always very interested in like what the cruise lines do, what the airlines do, the DMCs. So I feel like there's a lot of different opportunity within the industry, and it's fascinating, and it changes every day. So even what we knew last year, it's a very different perspective this year on how things work. So never bored, that's for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's amazing to hear that there's so many layers behind the experience, behind the professional that we work with today, everything that kind of led up to that. And knowing that you have that bandwidth that goes around, so much of the history of the industry, it's phenomenal. That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't think I realized you were from Minnesota. I used to live in Minneapolis when I worked for Target. So I was there for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was small town Minnesota, though. It was like 5,000 people from high school. We moved around a lot, too. So that's another reason why I'm just always like looking for a change. Was I actually lived in Austin, Minnesota for a while. So any Spam fans, my dad worked for Hormel. So we moved around, and then I lived in like southwestern Minnesota, but for me, I had to go to the cities that was my big getaway for college. So I went to school at St. Thomas. Oh, nice. And that was great because it was like downtown, big city. And then I never really looked back to like, I can't go back to a small town. But now I'm kind of in my age. I'm like, I don't run all these people around me. So yeah, I think I'd be fine going back out to the country. So I think you ebb and flow. But yeah, I've got some family and friends still in Minnesota, but we've all kind of just gone everywhere. So it's great that I can travel, and I could be at a conference in Arizona and see one of my friends from grade school, or go to New York and see my friends from college. And so it's great to have friends all over the country, regardless of where you're from or where you live.
It's amazing how this industry gives you those connections. All of a sudden you are, you're connected all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast and beyond. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you alluded to it a little bit there, but as you're so you're moving more so into groups now. What do you love about being in groups versus other kinds of travel?
For the groups, I think it is a little bit less corporate, right? You know, it's a lot of times too, and I think just leisure travel in general. Because when I was doing groups with incentives, it was always like, it's a business decision. There's like P&L statements, there's like an executive and all the decision makers, there wasn't a ton of emotion behind it. But I feel like for weddings and for, you know, vacation travel, all of that, I like the fact that there is an end goal. And it really isn't just to save money. It is to get people together. It is to kind of, you know, find a great fit and a great hotel for them. So for me, I feel like just kind of making sure that the emotions and like the personal opinions all kind of come together. So I do. I mean, I like group travel, but I still like luxury leisure travel as well. But I think it is just like, if you get the right clients, you get the right advisors to work with, it just, everything goes very smoothly. But, you know, there can also be some not so great clients that we don't want to work with on groups. But, you know, I still always come back that, you know, it's something that if you've got a right partner, you've got, you know, the setting the right expectations in it front, it works out really well. And so I like both groups and luxury FIT.
It's so funny that you say it like that, because, you know, my friends call it, they call it PR Mario. I always have PR Mario that comes out that's like, it's, you know, you know, there's you know, the bad clients, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, like, that's the whole point of this podcast, is to talk about the truth in it. There are bad clients. There are clients that are not great to work with. And it's nice as a seasoned travel professional to be able to identify that and to make sure that we're a good fit for them and that they're a good fit for us. And that, I think, ties in a lot with a tour operator, because we know how this entire process goes with us and how we're working through our contract. We know the people that are going to be well received within that, and the people that maybe won't be so well received.
Well, and to add on to that, talking to Lynne brings a whole different angle to the word client, because when we think of client, we're thinking of the end client, like the group, the wedding couple, the traveler. But with a tour operator, the travel advisor is the client. So I think it also makes you think about, what are you doing to be a good client or a bad client to someone else? And, you know, that all rolls downhill the same way. Yeah. So it's an interesting angle to think about travel advisors being your clients. And I'm sure there's some good, bad, and ugly in there as well.
I think that's very true, because it's interesting how, just even from like a quote, like we have travel advisors who call us and they're asking for 12, 13, 14 different quotes.
Oh my gosh.
Because they haven't put that kind of barrier or kind of, you know, some sort of boundaries with their clients. Yeah. I'm like, no, you need to, you know, kind of work with your clients to say, hey, I'm going to provide you with 3 proposals. And if those don't work, we didn't qualify you correctly, or I didn't ask the right questions. But when Classic is being asked to do 12, 13, 14 proposals, it's like, well, why aren't you helping me? You know, it's not like, hey, because we can't qualify the agent without that, you know, because we don't have that direct consumer conversation. So it is something too of like, how would you like your customer to work with you? It's how Classic wants to work with you as a professional. And that's the reason why we work with professionals, is because you do ask those questions. You do have that whole workflow to make sure that you're getting the right clients and you're asking the right questions. And then we choose to work with professionals because we know that you've already done the hard work, which is, you know, closing the sale and really qualifying your clients too.
Yeah, it's one of the things I like the most. So being totally transparent, I had worked with Classic in the past, then I kind of took a break and then came back. And one of the first things that we got to do when I came back was to have a really honest sit down Zoom with all the right people in the groups department, me, Mandy from my team, and just be real about, okay, here's how we work. If I ask you for a quote, it's because we are already there. They have already picked the resort. We are only doing this one time. Like, I'm not going to waste your time. You're not going to waste my time. Like, and just being able to have those honest conversations at that level makes everything go so much more smoothly. It's great when you can build on that kind of rapport over time, especially.
Exactly. And I think that is just, it's like a repeat client. When you've got a repeat client of your own that you've worked with or you've had referrals from, you have more confidence that this is going to go well because you have already kind of know how it's going to go. So, you know, Classic Groups is the same way that, you know, our top sellers do more than one group a year. And so a lot of the advisors that do just one group a year, it's a different experience for them. So we really are working to make sure that we are working with everyone, but we want to make sure that everybody has the chance to say, I want to do more. I want to do more with classic. I want to do more of this type, but it's harder to kind of qualify and say, we can hold it all the way through. But if they're not used to groups or they don't have the same workflow, it does get a little bit harder. But we're here to help anyone and everyone, as long as we know that they're professional and, and they want to be a partner. We don't want to be a supplier. We really do want to be a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, obviously the world has changed a lot in the last couple of years. We won't rehash the pandemic because everybody knows what happened there. But I have to speculate that post-pandemic, hotels are working differently, tour operators are working differently. And like, what is changing and how do you think that's going to affect 2024 and 2025? Like, what's different now?
Well, it's even changed since the pandemic again, because I think the whole pent-up demand, we're starting to see the downward slope of that, because it was so busy right after the pandemic that everyone was just kind of scrambling. The hotels were full, the rates were going up, space was kind of dropping off with a blink of an eye. So it was definitely harder, but I do feel like even since then, that slowed down, and it hasn't slowed down, in my opinion, to pre-pandemic levels. It just, the demand of like the revenge travel, I think kind of slowed down there. Yeah. So again, while we're still ahead of our 2019, we're not as far ahead as we were just even in January or February. Like, so I can kind of feel that it's, everyone's like, is it a recession? Is it just, a lot of the advisors have said it's just normalizing. It's kind of like, everything has ups and down cycles, and we're just kind of coming down, but not to say that it's bad or negative, or it's just reality, that there's going to be a dip in demand and it will come back up. So we're hopeful for engagement season and festive coming up, that people are still going to be booking, still traveling. But 2024, I think, is going to be a challenge, because again, we all had a really good 22 and 23. And so everyone's trying to beat their best last numbers. And it's hard when, again, we had 2 years of practically zero sales. So I feel like 23 was a lot of that. It was a lot of, 2020 and 2021 sales all kind of packaged into 1 year. And it was great, but people can't forget how we were really hurting for business and numbers in 2020 and 2021. It was all red, right? So for 24 and 25, I'm still optimistic. There's, I think, a lot of really good opportunity. But it is kind of a reality check for all of us that, we probably can't keep going at that pace. And the hotels too, they're seeing some openings and some vacancies in high season, which is very unheard of this time of year. So for us, we're just trying to monitor it, making sure that we're not overcommitting with the hotels and taking space, but we don't want to undercommit either, so that, that they do sell out. So for us, it's just trying to find that balance of, making sure occupancy and rates all line up, but that's like the revenue management, I feel, has been, a priority over sales, so revenue management for the hotels, for the agencies, for the tour operators, is just making sure that we have the right amount of business and the right balance.
Yeah. And I think, I see it from a business owner perspective, like our business is like, 90% groups, and the revenue management thing, we're definitely starting to see more in contract terms, like 4-night minimums instead of 3, longer attrition times, different price. It's no longer a given that you can just add rooms to a block at the same price. Like, are there other things that you're seeing that will be big changes that people can prepare for, or should we expect just more of the same?
Well, I think the minimum length of stay is something else that we're seeing, because hotels don't want to, they're already looking at how can I fill my hotel 7 nights a week and not have these huge dips and peaks and valleys in occupancy and in rates. So if you have a weekend wedding and people just come in for 2 nights, Friday, Saturday night, now they're stuck with a room Sunday to Thursday, and there's not that same demand. So for us, they're saying, okay, if you come to this wedding, you have to stay for 4 nights if you want 30 rooms. But then you can go to the website and you can book 1 room for 2 nights. Right. And so that has been a challenge as well, because it's just trying to explain to the wedding couple of, if you want to hold all this space for this group, this is, these are the terms and conditions. So this minimum length of stay. And then if you've got people that want to come for 2 nights, they still have to pay for 4, or they're going to book outside your block. So it has been a challenge to kind of almost be a mediator between the hotel, because I understand why they're doing it, but then trying to explain to a wedding couple or their wedding guests why they can't do it. It's been a challenge. So I don't have a solution for it yet, other than, I understand that in peak seasons, but if it's shoulder season and the hotel's running 60% occupancy,
Yeah.
let's be flexible here. So it really is, I think, depending on the conversations with the hotels is, do we really need to have this black and white, solution all year long? Or can we talk about when you've got some flexibility and making sure that, we start having Tuesday weddings and then there's no minimum length of stay, so what else can we do to maximize business for everybody?
I think our next question is actually going to lead into that. But before I get there, I also think it's something when we talk about revenue management and holding room blocks, I think it's so important for the travel advisor to really, again, qualify your clients, make sure that, yes, you're having the conversation with the couple about what their group looks like. And when they say all of our friends are going to come and it's going to be a 200-person wedding, and the first thing out of my mouth is actually that's, given the timeline that you're providing your clients and location on where you're going based on where they're based, you can probably expect 60 to 70% on the high end for your group to come. I said, so I definitely understand, like, everyone is telling you yes right now, but there will be people that tell you yes that don't come. And so it's our responsibility as a travel advisor to go, to give you ammunition to go to the hotel so that we can qualify the groups properly and make sure that we're not holding extra inventory, because that affects the room rates in the end as we get closer to travel, right?
Exactly.
Do you think, from what you've seen, that incentives for groups are kind of drying up? Does it feel like there's less incentive for a group to hold space than there used to be? Or am I just imagining that because my job is now harder than it used to be?
I think there's still incentive, but it doesn't seem as black and white as it used to be. I think before you were getting lower rates, you're getting comp nights, you're getting, free cocktail reception. But now I feel like, depending on the hotel, they don't necessarily need the group business because they're getting the FIT. So again, this is cyclical. So while the hotels, I think right now, are seeing a lot of groups, a lot of weddings, they had to start putting certain restrictions on so that it didn't get out of control, or they started to kind of even the playing field. So we want to make sure that, okay, we can still do groups and still get concessions, but maybe not during their peak dates. So just having the conversation with the hotel, when can we travel? When can we get the best deal or concessions? Because they're still out there. They still want the group business, but they're also trying to find the balance because they want the FIT as well. So again, holidays, weekends, that's really when they want the FIT business, and especially during high season. So if you've got a summer wedding on a Tuesday in Cancun, I feel like you're going to get a lot more for negotiation power than you would trying to come in like Valentine's Day weekend or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so that actually definitely leads us into the next question. So lots of this is actually one of my favorite questions about it. Lots of the hotels are pushing for direct bookings, and there's some hotels like let's say Excellence that are cutting.
Ooh, you just named them. I like it.
And I'm okay with it. I feel really good about that.
I do too.
They are cutting out tour operators completely, right?
Yes.
So on that note, what is the future of the tour operator, and what advantages are there for travel advisors to book through the tour operator instead of booking direct with the hotel?
Yeah, so I think, the future for tour operators, it has changed. In the past, it was all about, volume, and it was about, what else they can do. But I think now there are so many distribution channels with OTAs, with, even mobile. And again, and now there's all these connectors. Before, tour operators were kind of loading rates, and we had like a catalog of how many rooms do you want. So the whole idea of a tour operator has changed, but I feel like the access that we have into the travel agencies, and we can see the diversity too. So if you're a single hotel like Excellence, they know exactly who their audience is. But if that client doesn't go to Excellence, and then next year they go somewhere else, they lose that client completely. Whereas as a tour operator and working with the agency, we can reroute that client and say, hey, you want to go to Europe this summer? And then you can go back to Excellence in 2 years. But it does kind of help us maintain that relationship with the client so that we can work with you on making sure that they've got options. Because I think going direct for the hotels, they're all managing their own member databases, the loyalty programs. And there is a lot of work behind that. And I, applaud them for trying to really understand who their customer is. but they're also, those customers do sell other products. They do buy other destinations. And so if you're doing that direct, you're cutting out the tour operator and cutting out the travel agency. You really are cutting off your arms to be able to only have that customer for that one particular brand or particular destination. And, the tour operator and the agencies, that's really where we are, is multi-destination and multi-service, so that we can really grow with the client and not have just that one single product or brand to be able to promote and sell with them.
I think one of the things that I have observed is that, let's say someone does go to, I picked on them enough, I'll just say someone goes to a certain property and, they have a great time on their individual vacation. It's been phenomenal. They had a blast. They thought the service was great. Fine. That doesn't always translate to groups. And the reason it translates, the reason that good service and a great experience translates to groups is because of partners like our tour operators that really make sure to set the expectations up front, that not only are we as the little travel advisor that's, holding them accountable, but they also have the tour operator who's holding them accountable and making sure that they are delivering on the promises that they're making. And so I just think to have that advocate in your corner, it would be silly for an advisor to at least not consider it, because it really just changes the entire experience. And, even if you're looking at booking engines, there's some, properties out there that you're going in and now you're, instead of processing your payments in the States, your payments are actually getting processed in destination. And that then fraud, numbers are up, and not saying that fraud is occurring, but you can bounce back as fraud, right?
Different situation. Yeah. It changes. It's not integrated with your CRM, like the hotel direct. I mean, it's a different process.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. No, and for us, leverage is a big thing, because we do have, multi-million-dollar contracts with all of the all-inclusive partners. The amount of business that we send them, we have regular meetings because we do marketing and, cross-promotion and branding together. So there's a lot more than just the actual booking itself, and the relationships that do go back into, decades long. So if you're an advisor and you found a hotel that your clients like, you might be working with that salesperson, but then in 6 months, that salesperson might not be there. Even the general manager might not be there, but that Classic will have been there. And we have, both paperwork and relationships to be able to, keep them accountable and making sure that they are holding up to the standards that we all agree to when we sign that contract. So overall, again, I totally agree that the tour operator's role is definitely not a middleman, but as, an advocate. We really do want to partner with you, but we want to make sure it's working for everybody. So sometimes going direct is the best way to go. And that's, if a certain hotel chooses that's great. And I hope it works out for them. But at the same time too, if they come back later saying, okay, now we need help, we're not all going to be there with open arms, because at the same time, we need to make sure that we're taking care of those who've been taking care of us all this time.
It's the example, every time I hear one of these like book direct pitches, and we hear them a lot as advisors, and sometimes they start to turn me, like I start to think like, oh, well, that's interesting, or that would be better. But then I always think back to the 39 weddings that I rescheduled in 2020 and the weddings that I've had to move since. And I know Mario's done this too, for hurricanes, hurricane damage, other things. When you need to quickly move a group from one hotel to another, I would like to see you try that if you book that direct. Like that's a nightmare. That is when something goes wrong, it's like, you don't want to wait for something to go wrong to see the value of a partner. But oh my gosh, when something goes wrong and you have the right partner, it's life-changing. It takes a situation that is very bad and makes it much more tolerable. There's no way I can move weddings around like that if we had booked direct. It just wouldn't happen.
Oh yeah, no, because you'd be a lone person, trying to do all of that. But when you're, got other people, you've got salespeople, product team, you've got a flights manager, we've got plenty of, team members that would be able to help and support. And we also see it coming. Because we do, as soon as we saw there were storms happening in Mexico, we pulled up all of our groups, all of our individual bookings of who may potentially be affected. And, proactively reached out to say, are you still looking to travel? Because you have an out if you don't want to go. But if you do go and there's storm damage, you might, the hotel might close and relocate you. So, and then people had the choice, but it was nice that they felt like they had options. And that's what most people just want, is they want a choice if they're still going to go or they don't. And it was just nice to be able to know that there was several people helping out with that process and not just you alone trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
God bless the tour operators for that, because the first one that happened to me was 3 months in, when our hotel caught fire and there was a wedding that was coming up and the tour operators just ran with it. And then classic just recently with a hurricane that was in Cabo. And just like you just explained, it was before anything was even confirmed. Classic had an email in our inbox saying, this is the options for the guests. Please present it to them. They have an out if they want it. And that was so reassuring that at least we've done our due diligence to provide the guests with the clients. And if they decided to travel, which they did,
exactly.
Then it's kind of on you at that point.
Yeah. Well, no, it's good. It's just, again, we can't change the weather, but at least we can, make them aware of their options. And same with the hotels, if they're going to be open, it's their choice. But sometimes if a hotel closes because the amenities or the outlets are no longer physically open, people want their refunds. I'm like, okay, just it could be some changes to the service because of this, storm things too. So it is hard, but again, I think at the end of the day, we all just want to make sure that we are providing the best service and providing, clarity of, what the options are. And there's no, shadows there that we have to worry about kind of sneaking behind of, oh gosh, there's a storm coming. Let's just, close out for the day. But yeah, with having 24/7 support too with Classic, is also helpful, because I know I can call in them anytime and they're already on it. I don't have to go and try and rescue something from dinner where I'm busy too.
Right.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So,
okay. So shifting gears a little bit, thinking about Lynne, if Lynne is a brand new travel advisor today, like if you were starting in this business today, how would you build your business? And I guess, how does that translate to advice you would give to brand new travel advisors?
For me, I just think luxury travel is the most profitable, just because you're not trying to sell budget or cheap. And I think having a very upfront and clear service proposition of, again, here's your options. Do you want me to handle everything? Here's the price. Do you want me just to make the booking and then you kind of figure everything out? Here's the other price. So I feel like if you look at it from a different perspective, like an interior designer or a landscaper, like these are different kind of packages. This is the service I provide. Are you interested? I feel like, to me, that's very clear to a consumer who can also book their own travel, but they could also do their own interior design. They could also do their own landscaping, right? But just being able to explain to them how the travel industry works and how you're paid, and having that up front. But I feel like the luxury segment, people are a little bit, they're still price conscious. Nobody wants to overpay, but I feel like the reward and the amount of time invested is more valuable for the high-end traveler than for like the budget or like the lower tier price points. So even if that's what your clients, I feel like you should turn clients away if that's not it, because they can, for that time, making sure that, you're not spending your time over there when you could be spending more time with a customer who will pay for your value, your expertise, and has selected one of those packages, to kind of say, this is what I need from you. Here's, how many times we'll communicate, or here's, where I expect to be able to reach you during certain hours too. So I feel like having a very clear, open communication would be what I would want to do. Because right now everyone is like, oh, I sell the world and I'm available 24/7. Here's my cell phone. Like,
and
I feel like that's too much. And everyone's like, oh, I sell everything. I'm like, no, you really shouldn't, because if you don't specialize and are passionate about something specific, it's kind of like, it's like going to Denny's too. It's like you've got too many options that nothing really stands out. So for me, that's kind of what I would choose, is like, what is your niche? I personally, love luxury travel. I can't always afford it myself, but I do like the feeling when you're checking into a 5-star hotel and, flying business class. Like, I think like that is the way to go. And so if that is the niche that, I would want, that's what I would want to sell. So, yeah.
I am Joe Smith and I am the Denny's of travel advisors. I love that.
Well, I do like, was it analysis paralysis when you have too many options?
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like, I don't know what I want. But if you go to a steakhouse, you're going to order the steak, but you're not going to order the steak at Denny's because there's like 10 million other things that are there. So, yeah. So again, the tour operator is kind of like that too. It's like, we always compare ourselves to department stores. You can have all these different brands in a department store, but are you a Macy's, a Nordstrom, or a Neiman Marcus? Kind of where do you fall in? And you can see that the same brand might be in all three places, but it's not necessarily the presentation, the service, the return policy, all of those things could differ because of the store that you bought that particular item from.
I think it's very interesting that you brought up the advantages and disadvantages of accepting a client or not accepting them. And that, so we just spoke about it in our last episode. So that it's interesting that it comes up again.
Yeah.
But it's, again, one of those things as a travel advisor, it's so important to identify your niche, know where you're comfortable, know what you're speaking towards. You don't necessarily need to sell out of your pocket. If if your target market is, a class or two above your pay grade, it's okay as long as you're confident in selling it and as long as you're able to speak to it. It has nothing to do with how much you're comfortable spending.
Exactly. Yeah.
You also said something, it was subtle and implied, but it's worth calling out. You also basically said you would charge fees. Like you talked about a service package and having different options. So this is a scandalous question, but I'm going to ask it. As a tour operator, can you see the difference in advisors who charge fees and advisors who do not? Like, is there a distinct difference?
I do, because we started tracking conversion, right? So we are always looking at how many quotes people do, how many times they've called the call center, how many times they've gone online. If it's an online quote, it doesn't bother us. But if they're calling in and taking time with our res agents and not closing, that to us is not a priority versus a client who calls in every time. Most of the clients who call in, like you said, Ashley, it's like, I know what my clients want. I just need someone to put it together.
Yeah.
And most of the time they've charged a fee to just even do the quotes, or the clients have committed, yes, your time is worth it. So yes, I'd like a quote from you. Because what's to stop that consumer from asking 4 different travel advisors to put together a proposal? In the meantime, all 4 of those advisors are calling Classic, not knowing that it's the same consumer that they're all, bidding on this business. So for me and for our team, we really do like and appreciate when the advisors charge a fee, because then we know you're 90% of the way there to get the commitment from the clients that they're going to sell what you propose. And even if there's some massaging to do on the budget or the destination, at least we know that that client's going to book with you. Even if it's not a Classic booking and they go to a cruise, we know that, we put our bid out there, but you get the client, which is our priority. That if we didn't convert this one because they chose a cruise, at least we know that advisor is going to come back to us with their next client that wants a land vacation or, a destination wedding too. So for me, absolutely, I think fees are vital. We do allow at Classic for you to add a fee, and we just retain the 3 or 4% for the credit card fee. The rest of it, the 96%, goes right to your commission. So we want to make it as simple as possible for you to be able to do that. The timing of it doesn't always work, that you have to charge the fee before the proposal, but just know that we will be available for you to process that transaction so that you can make sure that that is part of your proposal with your clients, that you're getting paid for what you do. But our res agents only get paid if it's booked, so we want to make sure that that's how it works for us as well.
I love that it's only the 3 or 4%, which is reasonable.
Yes.
Not everyone is that reasonable. We'll name names.
Yeah, it's a courtesy. Again, we shouldn't be, paying, covering that, but we do cover the merchant fees for all the other travel. So that is part of a cost of doing business for us. But for you, we're just basically passing along what our costs are so that, neither one of us is paying an exorbitant amount, but neither one of us is profiting either off of the credit card processing part of it. They're making enough money off of all of us as it is. So
truth.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on this, but now the opposite side of that question, if you were a brand new advisor, what mistakes do you see advisors making? Like, what are the things that you guys see as a tour operator that just make you cringe, or you just wish you could reach in and help that person fix?
Yeah, no, I think
face. Again, people who are watching versus listening, you're missing some key facial expressions here.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of mistakes. I think the biggest mistake that I see new advisors making is not totally understanding how things are different versus being a consumer booking direct. So for instance, with a tour operator, we do take a deposit and then there is a final payment before you travel, versus if you're booking direct with the hotel or you're a consumer, you just make a reservation and you pay at checkout. So a lot of advisors that are new don't quite understand or ask the questions, how is this different than my client just making a reservation? But with a tour operator, there are several things that you're not giving up all your negotiation power at checkout because you're prepaid, but you still have Classic, that if something's not going well during the trip, that you would still have some sort of recourse. But that's usually the difference. But I think as a new advisor, just not asking the questions and understanding all the processes, it is a lot in our industry, but it's kind of like you said, you learn after some traumatic event. But if they can ask the question like, okay, what could go wrong here? Or what could I have done better? Is making sure that they really do understand how the workflow works for the bookings, for the flights, for the transfers, and how it all comes together. Because there are a lot of loose pieces that we all put together, and it is quite a lot to have. But if they don't ask the questions, then they're going to have to learn the hard way.
It's the perfect example of fuck around and find out. Like,
yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with asking questions. And
Yeah.
something I see just now, having done this a few years, is that some advisors almost see the tour operators like an adversary instead of an advocate. Like you see, in like Facebook groups or industry groups where people are like, classic or go, or whoever. But, and yes, everybody has their pros and their cons and their problems, we ourselves included. But that tour operator, that should be a relationship of someone who is advocating for you, not someone you should be butting heads with. And so feeling comfortable enough to even ask questions. Like, I know I do, like, hey, I'm sorry, this is a stupid question, but what do you mean when you say this? Or this contract is different than other contracts I've seen before. Explain to me this, or how this is calculated. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking questions, and some people just don't take the opportunity.
No, I think it's valid, and there really is no stupid question unless I've already told you the answer before and I have it in writing. But again, every instance is different. Every trip, every client is different. So I do think it's good that if you do ask somebody like a partner or even your customer, and you can't explain in a very clear, precise way, like, then yeah, it's worth asking the question for clarity, because the whole assumptions, I assumed you were going to do this, I assumed this would happen. That it doesn't help anybody when that didn't happen, because if we have like, hey, I confirmed this, here's my email, here's my text, here's what we talked about, is always kind of coming back, and not to get into the whole CYA, cover your ass kind of thing. It's really just making sure that everyone's expectations are on the table and it's very clear, because one someone said is clear as kind. It's not that you're telling bad messaging, it just means that you're clearly telling the truth of, here's the matter of fact, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, here's the situation, and here's your options, here's how we can work on it together. So I feel like just being clear and open for questions, answers, problem resolution, you just really need to kind of get down to, the details of everything. And I feel like a tour operator is there. And if you're not getting those kind of, clear, concise answers from your tour operator, I don't know if that's the right partnership. So
it's one of my least favorite sales managers that I ever had in my past life. The one thing I took away from him, that he said, the way it is often can be presented is the realm of possibility. This is the realm of possibility of what we can do. So let's work within here and see if we can find a solution. That's, instead of just tossing out like, hey, I want this, and sure, give it to me. Like, it's
right. Exactly. Well, yeah.
And this all ties back to the original question of why a tour operator versus direct. These types of questions, at least when you're asking, you're going to get a neutral answer. Like, Classic is representing everyone. So a tour operator is representing all kinds of hotels. It's going to be a different situation if you ask a question of a hotel direct or, in another environment. It's just being able to have a neutral advocate, I think, can't be understated. It's huge. Obviously, we are very pro tour operator. Mario and I are very open about saying that. But these are the things that people may not think about when a BDM is in front of you and they're saying, hey, if you book direct, you get more commission. Or if you book direct, you don't have to register your bookings. Or, something like little and easy. You're not thinking of the big picture of what could happen down the road.
Exactly.
So then kind of along that note, it's specifically with Classic, where do you think travel advisors are kind of missing the boat? Like, what should we be taking advantage of that's unique to Classic and really gives them a one-up?
I think the biggest thing is probably our training and, the events that we offer. So for us, training is a big part of it, especially with my role for new business development, is we identified, 5-6 years ago, how many people were coming to the industry, and they weren't necessarily millennials right out of college. They were people that were second or third career, and they were all different ages. And there really wasn't anything specifically for these people that were new to the industry. They didn't qualify for FAMs or even know about them. They didn't qualify for these top award winner trips or how to qualify for them. And if they did ask the question, they were kind of like, go do your research. Like nobody in the chat groups, it felt like very abrasive. And there wasn't like this warm welcome of like, hey, if you're willing to invest the time, yeah, we'll help you. We'll point you in the right direction. You don't have to give them the answers, but we'll definitely help. So Classic has, what we call Learning Lounge. We started it actually in 2020. And it was an event to just have kind of business relationship conversations. So it wasn't about products or about destination training. It really was how to be a successful entrepreneur and business owner. We talked everything from like psychology to, how to do a better job in your PowerPoint presentations, so there's a lot of different things that we wanted to just empower advisors to feel confident. Charging fees. We had a whole conversation about an hour worth on that one. We actually did one with Will about podcasts, when podcasts were getting really, really big. And so we talked about, just how to do a podcast. What equipment do you need? So it was just kind of like, let's have a conversation about what we can do. And so Learning Lounge is a virtual event, but we also do a couple live events that, again, we don't widely broadcast because they've mostly been promoted by our team or by word of mouth. One of them was E3. Which is Elite Education Experience. And it was elite because it's only 40 advisors education because they're new to industry, anywhere from, 1 to 7 years of experience. And then we've also done the experience, which is they get to meet with different partners on one-to-one appointments, but ask questions. Like they're not going to sit and listen to presentations. And we brought in outside speakers to talk to about just, motivational speaking and, how to run your business, and let them talk to some of our star performers, which is our top producing agents, and ask them kind of, do you remember back when you started, what would you do differently? So a lot of these same conversations to really motivate and encourage them that they're in the right place. If you're passionate, here's what you can do. Here's what you can do better, and then just talk to other people that are in the same boat in a very safe environment. And then Save the Date launched after that. So Save the Date is our destination wedding event. And so that event is, we had a really successful one in May of 2023, and we're almost sold out. We moved it to January just because we want to be right in the heart of engagement season, the beginning of the year. So it's the same thing too. It's, 40 advisors. It's meeting with different hotel partners, learning about the weddings, learning about the romance travel, hearing from other agency owners who really, have been in the trenches with them, and what advice do they have, what questions can they answer. So I think just having access to those events, it's really once you're already booking Classic. So a lot of people said, oh, I'll book Classic once I get a chance to experience it. But for us, it's always been the opposite, that once you're booking us and we've worked together, we want to reward you with extra education and access. So Learning Lounge, all the virtual events are available to everyone. So, obviously free of charge, but anytime there's an in-travel event, whether a FAM or a conference, we're already looking for that partnership and investment and time to know that you're already starting committing and leaning into Classic. So that for us is really our focus, that a lot of people don't know about, because if they're not booking us, they don't get those invitations, right? But we want to be more visible. We want to get louder and know that Classic is here for you. So that's why we do have some people at Save the Date that have never booked Classic before, but we just know that they have the business and the potential, and we want to invest in that too.
Awesome. So taking even a deeper dive into Classic then. So you guys have invested a lot into changes in technology and, along those lines. Can you tell us a bit more about what is coming with Classic and what you're doing to make both groups and FITs a little easier for travel advisors?
Absolutely. Well, to kind of preface that, Classic has always been, I would say about 90% of our business comes to our call center or via email with our reservation or group sales teams.
Really? 90%?
90%. Because again, we don't have a consumer direct channel. So everything's with advisors, but the technology has always been secondary for Classic because there's not a lot of service level things you can enhance with an algorithm. So, but we have heard from our advisors, they want access and they want control because they are professionals. They want to be able to manage this themselves, whether they're quoting, searching, making changes. So we have been really investing with our solutions team. Previously, we outsourced all of IT. Recently, we have a team in India. So we have our own developers that are working and creating solutions just for what Classic needs for our advisors. And we have some advisory board members that we kind of say, here's a sample, here's a demo, here's where we're going. What would you change? How does this look for you? So we've had some really good conversations with our existing clients to say, if you're speaking for all the advisors out there, what else can we do better and differently? So there's some great enhancements coming out. Specifically for groups, we're changing up the dashboard so that you'll be able to see just at a quick glance how many rooms are pending, how much left is in availability. You can sort, you can see traveled groups and kind of go back and look at different reports. We're working on a couple other skills that you'll be able to upload a rooming list rather than doing individual data entry. We're working on connectivity with CRM. So if you have all of the traveler information and profile in your CRM, you should just be able to send it to Classic without having to duplicate that information. So
that would be amazing.
So everything that I think the advisors have told us would save them time and free them up to sell more, that's where we really want to prioritize. And so again, there's lots of new enhancements coming out in November and then in December. And then we've got a great roadmap for technology enhancements in January, all the way up through 2024. So that will include being able to modify and make changes to bookings. We will be able to do multi-room bookings on the FIT side. We're also working on assistant role, which I think, again, a lot of advisors are so busy that they've hired virtual assistants. And rather than sharing your login credentials, we want to give them their own login credentials so they can see the details of the booking, but not your profit. We don't want them to see the commission because, you know, they're thinking, well, you don't want to show someone your paycheck, right? So for us, we've created this assistant role for the agency that you can provide a separate login and they can access all your groups, make payments, you know, make some adjustments on transfers, but they're not going to spend, you know, be able to see everything as if they're an owner. So we want to make sure that you have those options and that flexibility, that you'll have control, you'll have more visibility, but you'll also be able to manage your groups on your own and what your team can do and can see.
I think every time that you've provided updates with what you guys are doing, I'm just like, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the pushing, because we've been so focused on like being able to like push payments and stuff through CRMs. I wasn't even thinking about like the reservation, like being able to push the names and the dates and everything else. That would be life-changing.
Yeah, because a lot of what the advisor is doing now is we came out with a custom group website, you know, 5 or more years ago. And that was kind of the start of it. But now everyone's doing their own forms and collecting that and then sending it to us. So there's one way or the other, the systems can all talk. It's just we need to write the language to do that. So we've already worked successfully with Vacation CRM. Right now we can push payments, but we haven't yet been able to push through all the passenger details, but that is coming. And then we're also working with Travify, Axis, UMapped, TravelJoy is something else we're working towards as well. So we really just want to be one of the best connectors so that, again, we're not all trying to put together our own databases, our own systems, our own processes, but we really have something that, you know, is agnostic, that, you know, here's it's your clients, it's your information. Here's how we want it visible between all the different systems.
Absolutely. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
One more thing you talked about with the event, and sorry, this is going to be like a shameless plug for us, but you were, I'm just going to call it what it is. You were talking about these events kind of being like off the radar because people don't know about them until they, you know, book with Classic or exposed to Classic. I think that's another maybe unspoken, or we don't talk about as much benefit of something like the playbook. When you're in a community of advisors who are doing what you do, who work the way you work, who, you know, have access to things maybe you don't have access to, because I know that's how some people heard about Save the Date for the first time. Like they weren't necessarily getting invited because they weren't that active with Classic, but once somebody from their peer set, you know, within the playbook mentioned it, they were able to attend, and then that changed their business. So just having access to things that you maybe wouldn't know about otherwise, it's a great opportunity for someone. If you're serious about weddings, or you're serious about groups and serious about building your business, these are the kinds of things that being a part of a community gives you access to that you would not find on your own.
Absolutely. And I think for us, I mean, we wanted to give those playbook members, you know, a promotional discount, you know, because again, it was a referral, it was word of mouth. We do want them to be able to travel together. But at the end of the day, we really want to make sure we're all doing business together too. So I think that's a great opportunity to network. In the playbook, we've been a fan for a long time. You know, I actually, when Will was doing his first retreat, he was afraid to ask for sponsorship money. So I sent him a proposal and said, send this back to me. Make it look like it's coming from you and I will sponsor your event. And I said, all I need is some presentation time. And, you know, so it was great that, you know, he was afraid to do that. But I said, you have every right to do this. You've got this audience. You've got these dedicated advisors that are looking to grow. And I absolutely, I mean, I want to be there to sponsor it. We want to support it. We're partners. So the playbook group and to see it grow and have you guys, leading up the charge now, it's big shoes to fill, but I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We might ask you to repeat that on some of the harder days.
Yeah. Just hit replay.
Hey, Lynne, I need a pep talk. All right. Well, thank you so much for letting us interrogate you. Hopefully that wasn't too painful. It's all great information. And I'm so excited. I know Mario is too, about all the great things to come. I mean, not just from a technology standpoint, but there's always something new. There's always something different going on at Classic. We may have something up our sleeve with something in the works that is coming. Mario's doing his little secret dance. I don't know what that is. But thank you for all of your support and partnership. It means the world to all of us.
No, I appreciate you more than you know. So if you ever need a pep talk, I'm just a text away. So happy to help.
Good to know. Okay, so to wrap things up, Mario's been calling this the infamous lightning round. I don't know if something can be infamous when we've only done it 4 times. But
it's super infamous.
All right, so we'll end things with the lightning round. Don't overthink it. Anything goes. You can say whatever you want. This is Lynne speaking. This is not Lynne from Classic. This is just for Lynne as a person. So we can distinguish that.
Separate the branding here. Yeah.
The bigger the blueprint, the better. We encourage it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
I think Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii really has my heart. Every time I go, I literally get emotional. So Hawaii for sure. I don't know which island. I'd have to maybe have a house on each one. But, overall, the whole state and destination is definitely where I would love to retire someday.
And you were there 5 years. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was supposed to be for a year. But yeah, I kept saying like, I can't leave yet. I'm not ready to leave. So, but yeah, I'll be back eventually.
A house on each island. That sounds realistic.
Yeah, it's realistic, right?
Yeah. This is one of my favorites, close to my heart. What is your favorite curse word?
Probably fuck. Yeah, it's just, it rolls off and it's a noun, it's a verb, it's an adjective, it's pretty much everything. And it, you can even say it louder or softer. There's, it really, like I said, it's so universal. It's easy to do. Easy as one to roll off your tongue.
No one's brought up volume yet. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Volume's a good one. That's it.
Yeah. When you stub your toe, it's loud, but there's times where I'm mumbling it too, because my kids are around, So.
Well, and then, so along those same lines, doesn't necessarily need to be a curse word. What is your least favorite word just in general?
Oh gosh. I would say, I don't know. I don't even want to say it, but like when someone says something's moist, I still think that's just like a gross word. And I think it just puts really graphic details in my head and I just don't like it.
I think we've only had one person deviate from that it just should be taken out of the language.
Well, one person plus me, because it doesn't bother me. I know it bothers a lot.
What are your words? I didn't hear. What's your least favorite?
Mine was moist.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't even know, but
I don't even know what I said. I'd have to go back and listen. I'm not even sure, but that one doesn't bug me. There's other words I like less, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't know what this is, we can explain. But what is your love language?
Oh, I think I actually haven't read the book, but I remember just talking with others. I would say it's words of encouragement. Or like
words of affirmation.
So affirmation, someone saying you're doing a good job, you're on the right track. This was really helpful. I think, for me, that's my love language, that I know something's working, but it's, but I also try to make sure that like I still can see myself in some of the other languages too.
I feel like I can use that to my advantage. That's good to know.
Yeah. Just give me compliments. Just, I'm always fishing for them. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynne. You're so pretty.
Right.
Here's some more money. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we have an extension? By the way, I love your sweater.
Yeah.
That'll work really, really well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the opposite of that, what turns you off? Like situations or just circumstances?
Probably any sort of conversations that steer into like political or religious, really strong opinions. I have my own opinions, but I don't usually express them, in the business world and even personally with family. I feel like it's been so disruptive. So anytime someone's like, what is your stance on this? It's just like, it's my opinion and I don't want to be, debated about it. So for me, I was just like, not that everything has to be roses, But at the same time, I'm like, there's just certain conversations that don't need to come up or get, too aggressive.
Yeah.
My stance is I don't want to talk about it. That's not.
Mine's changed the subject. Let's talk about
Yeah.
something else. And then I started talking about travel. And that's usually not very controversial.
Well, and we're playing this right before Thanksgiving. If someone finds themselves in that situation in the next day or so, just ask them where they want to go on vacation. Travel is always a good mediator.
You're right.
Should have listened to the episode all the way through. You would have known to avoid it at Thanksgiving. That's So on the topic of controversial topics, what is your favorite hotel? And if you can't play favorites, which we would understand, then what do you need in a hotel room when you travel?
Oh gosh. I do have a couple favorite hotels because it depends on my mood, but I think my biggest thing is a comfortable bed and a view, so again, just having a view to relax, because I can just, anytime I'm feeling like I'm in my happy place, it usually has a really comfortable bed and a really nice view to just enjoy and experience the room. So for me, I think those two things have to kind of come into play, and then they top of my favorite list.
View matters. Like when wedding guests are asking me, well, is it worth it? Should I upgrade? I always say, you went all the way there. Do you want to look at a brick wall, or do you want to look at a dumpster? Go all in, get the view.
Yeah.
I won't say where I just was or why I was there because it would point fingers at where, who I was with. But my view in my last trip was a construction site, and I was not happy about it. I was not thrilled.
This text makes more sense now. I'm putting it together. Okay, I got it. I'm tracking.
Yep. So even more polarizing than the hotel, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be a cat person, but not anymore. Now I have my own little dog, and it's actually very similar to your dog, Mario. Little Shih Tzu.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Maltese Shih Tzu. Yeah. But he's in here snoring right now. So
I've got about 2 weeks until I get to see Max again, and I cannot wait.
Oh,
It's
gonna be so chunky.
They've been sending pictures. He is rough.
Is he in Wisconsin right now, or where did you leave him?
He's with my parents because I've been traveling so much the past couple months. He's stayed up in Wisconsin, and he's been getting table scraps and just being lazy as he can be. He's super happy about it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
it's a life. Yeah, it's a dog's life. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
I'm glad you said snoring, because Jack, our beagle, was laying across my feet snoring like an old man halfway through this, and I was sure you guys could hear it, so I muted.
I didn't hear anything, but you're good for him. He's napping in the middle of the day.
Yeah. We've had dogs barking. Our last episode, someone asked if we could hear roosters in the background. It's just, a whole zoo.
Yeah.
Okay. Cocktail of choice. Honestly, an ice cold beer. If it's hot out, nothing like a frosted glass, super cold beer is can always go over really well. And just one, and then I'll switch into other cocktails. But yeah, that's probably my favorite.
That is the Midwest right there. Just a nice ice cold beer. That's
It's if you give me a Liney's, summer shandy, again, I could visualize take me back to my happy place, So there's certain things that, it's probably is my Midwestern speaking on that.
Good one though.
Yeah.
Great. So what is the biggest travel mistake you've made for yourself?
Well, there's probably a lot of those. I think the biggest one that was kind of funny was I booked myself to Hawaii February 14th. And then I booked my return March 14th, because on the calendar when it came up the 28 days, I just picked the second Tuesday or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got to the airport, they're like, how did you get in here? Your flight's not for a month. And so it was my connecting flight that I had booked internal or something. And they're like, how did you even get in the airport? But I had 2 separate tickets, and it was literally for a month later. And, they gave me a hard time. I'm like, well, I'm physically here for a and I tried to explain the whole calendar, but I visualized exactly what happened was I just clicked the button, and it was the wrong month, but it was the second Tuesday or Friday or whatever it was. But that was embarrassing because it was my own fault. I did it to myself. And it was just, and I never even looked at it, until I got my boarding pass, and I'm like, oh, this is the wrong day.
Was this recently?
I couldn't get a boarding pass. No, this was, I probably had pregnancy brain, honestly, because I do think I was just it was one of my last trips to Hawaii, and I was booking my flights. So it was probably 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So I haven't done it since, because now with the apps, they won't even let you, you can see they have the calendars and everything like that. But yeah, I think it was before the flight apps and everything.
I totally see how that could happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the last one you've made it through is, what is on your bucket list? It could be travel, it could be experience, could be anything. What's on your bucket list?
Well, for me, travel and experiences kind of go together, but an African safari. Actually, I was so jealous of your pictures recently, because I was just like, that's all like, it's been on my list, but it's the time, the money, the everything just hasn't lined up. And I just feel like I just need to like put it on the calendar, put it on the budget, and just do it. And I haven't. And it's like always in the distant future that I'll do it. But I love animals. I would love to see them in the wild, and not at a zoo. And I think just the whole experience would be amazing. So that's something I'd love to do, but it's also a huge continent, so I wouldn't even know where to start. So
well, I think we know a few people who could help.
Yeah, exactly. And then it would be hard to choose, like, okay, who do I give this to? But or now I'm just saving up money, because I'm like, I have to fly business class, and I have to stay in a luxury tent or something. So it definitely wouldn't be a cheap trip on my part. So
I still have a whole section of that trip I haven't posted about yet, because I keep getting sidetracked. But the last part of this most recent trip was the best. So if you're an animal person, look for those. Yeah. But this trip was a little more high end than my last trip. Like when I went to Kenya was roughing it a little bit. This one was definitely something you want to save and budget for. It was worth every penny, and having the nicer places made a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I think I think it'd be worth it, and I probably would be cringing as I'm paying the bills. But for me, I just went to Disney and spent a ton of money, and it wasn't even that great, So I was like, it must be much better to, go and do safari and all of that. So I hope I get to do it soon. But again, 2 kids going to college in the next, 4 years. That's kind of where our money's going right now. So just have to prioritize somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up Disney, because Disney can be as expensive as a safari.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's right up there. There was one of the agents on our trip sells primarily Disney, and I was talking to her about that, like, oh, this could be your Animal Kingdom people, like just transition them to a safari. And she's like, well, it's a little bit different than that. I'm like, is it really? Yeah. Is it really that different?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Disney has, it is something different, that when you're in it, like, it totally makes sense, and you're like, it's like play money. But then when you're planning it in advance, you're like, wow, for this amount of money, I could go to an all-inclusive and everything's included, or it'd be more high end, but it is just, again, I still like Disney, but I think that was our last trip, because I was like, I need to invest this elsewhere and really go somewhere we haven't been, and have a different experience. So, but now that my kids are older, I feel like we can get them into going to Europe, or going, on a longer trips versus just quick weekends like that.
Yeah. This is my travel agent secret shame. I've never been to Disney.
Oh, really?
Really? And I have no interest in going, with none, zero.
Yeah, if you have kids, that to me, that's kind of why I went as a kid, and then to me, I wanted to bring my kids, so it was kind of part of our traditions as a family. But yeah, I don't understand the Disney adults that just go over, but it's more cosplay, So there is a certain niche again too that love cosplay, love dress up, love, it's almost like being an actor, right? You're there, and the actors are really good. They call them cast members. But yeah, it's just like, you really do feel like you're in this completely different world. So it's a little bit of an escapism kind of trip for a lot of people. And I totally get that. And it is easy to book, because you show up and the parks are open. Here's your hours, here's how you get there. So it's a little bit easier to plan and book. But yeah, it's not for everyone, but I get the reason some people love it.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, and we don't sell Disney at Classic, so that's not even a pitch on my side.
I don't know. Matt wants to go to. My husband is a big Star Wars person, so I know we're going to have to go someday to do all that.
Yeah, if you've ever been to Comic-Con,
not today,
it's like that, but with different animal characters too. But yeah, it's just it is like you're on a Hollywood movie set, So it's just like you really do get kind of moved from world to world, and like I said, it's a great way to travel, especially Epcot. People always say, oh, I went from China to Spain in just 10 steps, but it's not the same as being there, but makes them feel like it was. So
Well,
Anyway,
thank
enough
you.
about that. Yeah.
No, I love how we went from safari to Disney.
Yeah.
It's all over. That's what travel people can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so for Lynne, for people that are interested in Classic but maybe aren't working with you yet, what's the best way for them to find you and get started?
I think the best thing is to reach out to for groups. It's just groups@classicvacations.com. That's kind of our general inbox for any sort of questions or inquiries. So if you need to meet your BDM or you just have a question about, is this the right fit for a Classic group or not? I think the groups@classicvacations.com is the best starting point. And just, again, ask a question. Let us know how we can help you. We also want to be proactively reaching out to people. So if you are registered and not booking, or you're not registered, but you're one of our preferred consortia partners, we want to make sure that we do connect and be able to kind of share that partnership together.
Okay. Well,
Awesome.
thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. We've already thanked you so much. So I won't keep going on and on, but we're so glad to have you. Thank you for making the time. We know how busy you are.
Oh, absolutely. No, I appreciate you both, and can't wait to see you again soon.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you very soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Running a travel business may have its challenges, but with a dash of humor, the right tools, an amazing community, and a lot of wine, success awaits us all. Raise a glass with us and toast to your remarkable journey.
Don't forget, if you're ready to take the next step in your travel career, one where you can focus on developing your niche, attracting leads, converting them into new clients, and automating your systems, you can build the business of your dreams. If you're ready, join us in the Playbook Inner Circle at jointheplaybook.com. We can't wait to see you inside.